and welcome to this week's broadcast of The Cosmic Prayer. My name is Laura Topper, and of course, as usual, we are here broadcasting through this incredible global focus ministry, New Thought Media Network. And each week, I invite a very beautiful guest on, somebody that I'm inspired by, somebody that I know that we all are inspired by. So each week I invite somebody on to share about their experiences of prayer, how we can use prayer, and how prayer has informed their lives. And since August 2020, this has been an ongoing, long stream of conversation with different people. And so I'm feeling really so grateful and so blessed this week on this particular day, which is Easter Monday, Bank Holiday Monday here in the UK. And of course, we're celebrating Passover, and we are honoring Ramadan also. These three wonderful opportunities for us to know truth in different ways. That today, our super guest, is Reverend Verona Garland. Reverend Verona is just she's a spark of joy, and I've been chatting with her backstage and just learning more about her. And I'm really excited that she said yes to joining us here. It was really through Reverend Joan Stedman, who came on a few months ago onto the show from the senior minister of the Agape Bay Area Center for Spiritual Living. Reverend Verona is the assistant minister there at the Agape Bay Area also. She serves as the founding minister of Blossoming Truth Global Ministries. I love that, Blossoming Truth. That's what we're doing, isn't it, right now? Her ministry is dedicated to joyously opening to Spirit's invitation of delight, play, really good, want to talk about that, and transformation, of course. And so I'm excited, and I know Rev Verona is too, and I'm going to bring Reverend Verona into prayer. Welcome. Hello.
Thank you.
Oh,
so wonderful to be here.
So good to be here, and I'm just loving that spark that's behind you in the background. I went, reading your biography here. You're kind of sparking this joy, and that's what kind of is shining through for me today. Thank you for saying yes to being here on the Cosmic Prayer. And let's know more about you, Reverend Verona, and how prayer informs your life. And what is your idea of prayer?
Well, my idea of prayer is the ongoing conversation that I have with Spirit. There's a way of formally praying, and we have steps that in our science of mind technology that we know work. It's a science. However, really, prayer to me is the ongoing conversation that I have with Spirit all the time. It's that it goes along with what it says, in First Thessalonians, prayer without ceasing. Where that the conversation, the ongoing conversation, the intuitive ongoing conversation within me is prayer, because Spirit, as we know, is the listener and the listening. And so prayer for me, it's there all the time. And also, of course, prayer for me has come to be in my life an affirmation. That as I pray, I'm really speaking the words to accept the things that are already mine to be, to have, to express, to illuminate, and to let it flow. Yeah. That's what prayer is for me.
And would you open up a little bit more on that topic of affirmation? Because I think that's really interesting. That came into my awareness this week, affirmation. And I was realizing that I want to be more present with saying affirmations. And I thought, well, not just because I'm saying a statement, but because it's the affirmation of the truth. So I know it already. And I just would like I'm just interested in your idea of that, of what an affirmation really is.
Of course, I love that the synchronicity of affirmations came for you this week, and it came for me this week too, Laura. However, yeah, it did. Affirmations showed up for me. A couple of reasons they showed up. One of the reasons is that at Agape Bay Area, our ministerial staff, we take turns every 10 days, we all write affirmations, and then we put those are published on our social media, on our Facebook, on our Instagram. And so the affirmations were coming up like, I'm the next one. It's my turn coming up. So that was what was on my heart. However, what really showed up on my heart this week about affirmations was just what you said. Instead of just saying them, instead of just voicing them or mouthing them, each affirmation that showed up for me this week, I really allowed myself to sink into it, to really be that affirmation, to really allow it to just wash over me, through me, and as me, because as we speak it, even if I don't say it out, what we call out loud, even if I'm saying it in my head, the universe is listening. And so universal law is always saying yes. We know that. We know that, as Ernest Holmes says, the universe abhors a vacuum. So whatever it is we speak into it is already happening. And so I also find that affirmations are comfort. They're comforting and they're soothing, and especially the affirmations that are I am and whatever comes after that. I am that I am, of course, but I am peace. I am joy. I am harmony. Actually, I'll give you an example. So yesterday, as we all know, for most of us in the world, it was Easter. And I have 2 adult children, and my 2 adult children, one of the lessons in life that they are learning, or one of the journeys that they are taking, is, it appears to be, disharmony. And so here it was, Easter showing up, and my 2 adult children who live in my geographical proximity. I'm thinking, so what's going to happen for Easter? Because they have chosen to, what I might call, not get along. Now, you and I know that this is part of their journey and is part of their learning. So Easter morning before service, and when I was doing my prayer and meditation and devotion, the devotionals, the affirmation that showed up is, my home and my life is harmony and peace and love. And I allowed myself to say that my home, my life, my very being is harmony, peace, and love, and just keep letting it pour over me, through me, around me, as me. I was even saying it in the shower, because I just felt like the holy water, and every water is holy because it's Spirit's water. The holy water was washing over me and just embedding that in me, as well as sending that message out to the universal law. And I want to be the first to tell you that my Easter Sunday was filled with harmony and peace and love. My son gave me a big, big Easter hug and said, okay, Mom, I love you. Happy Easter. I'm going out and about to have some fun. And my daughter came over and we had a wonderful Easter dinner and laughed and giggled and spent some time going into the depths about spirit, just between the 2 of us. And it was marvelous. It was really marvelous. And I realized it was the affirmation that I affirmed it before it even showed up. Yeah.
Oh my word. And that your daughter and you had time to share about spirit and talk that deeper conversation. Yes. That's so healing. That's so healing. Because it's not always that simple with our children to be able to have those conversations, those spiritual edge conversations where they have, they might have different ideas and don't want to hear.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And I don't know about you.
Go carry on.
I don't know about you, but sometimes my adult children might say to me, I want to speak to Mom. I don't want to speak to the minister or the practitioner in there. Right. So it's just goes along with what you just said. They may not want to hear the spiritual things or the spiritual truths, even though, and I often remind them, well, she's all rolled up into one. So let's talk.
Yes. Yes. And of course, we're all discovering and revealing in our own way, in that divine timing. So, oh, how beautiful. I'm so grateful that you've shared this, and thank you for giving me hope, and others that may be listening. People here on the line listening, let's our wonderful people. We have Fiona is here. Odes, greeting from Geneva. Hello, Fiona. Geneva, also beautiful blessings to you. Here with you as well. Love-based thinking will rise like a wellspring. Yes, we can talk about that, definitely. And Janice, do you know Janice?
Yes.
I love all your hearts, and there we go. I love this topic, prayer. Great, you're in the right spot, Janice. Hang out here. And of course, we have Bonnie. Bonnie is thank you for sharing how affirmation also affects your adult children's lives. And Bonnie, of course, is has her show Your Doula for Grief on here at 8 p.m. tonight, my time. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, that's 1 p.m. Mountain time. Bonnie's in Mexico. Let's talk about this a little bit deeper, more deeply, affirmations and prayer, and how when was the time, Reverend Verona, when you felt that knowing that prayer is the thing that's working for you for your life? Because it's one thing to be doing it and another thing to actually be embodied by it and in it and as it. And I know you've had a tremendous journey previously to ministering, of you explaining about your life and what you had done as a global citizen. So when was it that prayer kind of really got you?
Well, I'd like to, excuse me, lead that off by saying I was raised as a Southern Baptist. Okay. And I was raised in a faith philosophy that was about hell, fire, damnation, and sin. And so as a child, I prayed all the time. However, my prayer was a very different sort of prayer. It was that beseeching prayer, which we all have heard about and know about. Oh, please just make it better, God, beseeching prayer to that entity outside of me. And even though that was what I was taught as a child, I can remember even from my childhood that there was something assuring about it, even though it was beseeching, even though it was to that entity outside of me. Okay, so I grew up. I went to college. I went to a Presbyterian college. I left college and roamed around the domestic United States, and then I became a flight attendant. And as I was sharing with you earlier, I got the blessing to be a flight attendant for 43 years, all of my adult life, well, a great chunk of it. However, I would the sort of prayer that soothed me, that stayed with me, that encouraged me, that uplifted me, that beseeching prayer within me, it shifted unbeknownst to me when I was in maybe my early teens into more of a connectivity and conversation with spirit, really knowing that spirit is not outside of me, but is on the inside of me. And that as I say these words, especially even the rote prayers I learned as a child, that I'm not just blasting them out into a void, that this is really a conversation that's happening. So, of course, as my life went on, I discovered Science of Mind and I was home. And that's when I really realized, oh, it all connects together, because prayer is really, it's an affirmation. It's returning myself to itself, returning with a capital S to self. And so that's the way that in the whole arc of my life, when I look at it, how prayer began and flows and how it's happening now. And one of the things I was thinking about us being together today, and one of the things that showed up for me is when I was a child, I was raised as a Southern Baptist. And one of the things we did was get baptized. It was the John the Baptist faith philosophy. And we went into a baptismal pool and we were lowered into that pool and we were baptized. I, as a girl, did not know how to swim. And the baptismal pool was probably, I don't know, 6 feet deep, I'd say, at least. And I was a short girl. And I can remember even now, it shows up for me now, that when I was laid down in the water, it wasn't a prayer of God, please save me. It was really a prayer of, I'm returning to the source from whence I have come. And I realized that was with me, and it's carried through with me for all the way up right until this very moment, all these years later. And so prayer for me, it's a soother, it's a warmer, it's a calmer, it's a serenity maker, if that's the way you'd put it. And I also know that as I pray, I am pulling forth that is already mine to receive and to give, so that I am bringing myself, as we all know, grounding myself in that place and space where I really already am. And so now I get to step into it.
I love that. Everything you've just said, and that last piece about being that vessel and that grounded space to pull in and then to give, to receive, because prayer, as I understand it, is this surrendering into the reciprocal process where there's this give and with receive and the give and the receive and the give, and there's no discontinuality of it. It's one thing that's happening. So it just, how many times do you pray spiritual mind treatment? How many times do you spiritual mind treat a day?
I like that you asked this. This is kind of one of those, like, what does that person eat all day? Or how many times do you work out
And
all
this
day?
isn't a judgment or a test.
No. I love that you asked, Gar, because sometimes that's the sort of things I myself look up. How many times a day does that person do? However, I have to say officially, probably 3 times a day officially. That is a set spiritual mind treatment that I start with, recognition and go through all the steps. Okay. However, I'm praying most all of the day because during the day I'm having little snippets of conversation with Spirit. Okay. And what I do officially, technically, is in the morning, I have my meditation and prayer and what I call devotion, which is a holdover from how I was raised in earlier faith philosophy, all of those things, which we all understand and have. Then at midday, I stop at midday and say a spiritual mind treatment. And it's just because usually it's a spiritual mind treatment of gratitude at midday, but sometimes it's a spiritual mind treatment at midday to keep me centered, to keep me in that place and space where I started out from early in the morning, when I started out in the morning. And then, of course, needless to say, not needless to say, I pray a prayer when I crawl in bed at night.
Yes.
And sometimes I even do the thing that I used to do as a little girl. I pray on the side of my bed, just because it gives me a feeling of comfort. It gives me a feeling of it brings to me all of the me's that are inside of me. Do you know what I mean? The little girls, the inner child in me, the teenager in me, the young adult in me, the midlife person in me, the person in me who is now. And so then, and in the evening, my prayer is a prayer of thanksgiving. It's also a prayer of acknowledgement. And by that, I mean, I just heard it. It's also called the credit report. And what it is acknowledging those things which I have accomplished during the day, or acknowledging those things that I have given during the day, just being in a place of acknowledgement, knowing that I am in the highest of service. And then also my evening prayer sometime is before I sleep is a prayer of clarity or inquiry. That is to say, sometimes I might ask before I sleep, what is wanting to express through me, Spirit, in this facet of my life or in that facet of my life? Because I know that if I pray that prayer before I sleep, the answer shows up.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Oh, we are blessed. You've just shared your spiritual practice with us here on the Cosmic Quest. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it's personal and we can see your light, and I can see your light, and I can feel your light through the airwaves here, and your illumination shining through. And it's so beautiful to know that you're doing this work and you're walking your talk, talking your walk, and actually doing it, because that's what we need. There are times when I lapse and feel like, oh, I can't be bothered, or oh, there's too much going on. And yet then when I come back into routine, I know why I need to be doing it.
And I'm so glad you said that, because I gave you my structure. However, there's times when I quote unquote lapse also. There are times when I maybe in the middle of the day, I'm just busy. I think I'm busy. And in the middle of the day, I may be like, oh, I need to stop and do a prayer. And I realize that in that part, that's my ego saying, we don't need to do that. No. We can just keep on being in our humanness versus allowing the spirit that I am to really flow forth. And it's also, I'm sure we know that when we take the time to stop, for me, all sorts of wonderful, spectacular, unseen or unexpected things show up. All sorts of things show up that in my human mind, I couldn't have thought of. Yeah. So, and I need to say too, that sometimes my prayers in one 24-hour period are more than in other times, because, we all have had the experience of driving down the street and we hear that, na, 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 the sound of a siren. And in that moment, in my mind and heart, my prayer is, and in the midst of in the midst of it all, God is. In the midst of all of this, God is. Or the prayer that divine right and perfect order prevails within the lives of those that are affected by whomever is being picked up in the ambulance or whoever is being picked up, in those sorts of things. And also some of the prayers that show up for me during the day too is sometimes when I was just being with this recently, sometimes when I might fall off the edge into judgment, which happens, then the other prayer that shows up for me is I declare and accept the compassion that I am, or I embrace compassion, or, it's kind of a prayer affirmation. And the prayer is, I give thanks for being in the space of awareness of my judgment. And I also realize now and declare and affirm that compassion indwells me, uplifts me, and is me. And then give thanksgiving and, finish up the spiritual mind treatment. I just give thanks and I let it be. So that's other ways that prayers show up for me regularly.
Oh, wow. And as you're saying that, I was just thinking about in the month of March, we did an intentional prayer here on New Thought Media Network every single day. It was for peace, global peace. And of course, it included the experience with Ukraine and Russia. And yet it was broader than that, because it was for every being on this planet. And I showed up every day with Reverend Robert here on Zoom, and we were holding this space. And something really powerful happened for me after that month with my relationship with my daughter. And I won't go into the detail of that, but it just showed me how I stopped every day at 2 to 3 o'clock here in the afternoon, and I did a spiritual mind treatment. And there was a demonstration for me personally, although my intention was, of course, peace within me, because that's why I'm praying. It's my consciousness. And my intention was global and all of us, every being. And it happened, something really beautiful happened for me. And that really just, I carried on for myself doing that spiritual mind treatment at around 2 o'clock every day. I've carried on with it because I know it's so powerful. It's so powerful.
And I love that
can just change so much.
Yeah. And I so appreciate you bringing that to us, because you thought you were praying for peace. Spirit knew that some other prayer was available, and that it expanded your relationship with your daughter. And of course, then it also expands all your other relationships, because it lays more of a foundation for relationship prowess as you. Yeah, I love that. That's spectacular. Yeah. And I want to share with you that for the Lenten season, from Ash Wednesday till yesterday, I was praying a prayer of forgiveness. And this was not something that I would like to say it just showed up for me. However, I was reading Catherine Ponder book about the prospering power of love. I was reading that. And that was something that she suggested in there. And so I started praying forgiveness from that Wednesday up until yesterday. And what showed up in my life, people showed back up in my life who I had overlooked the fact that I possibly could have given them a reason to be in a place of unforgiveness about me. And 2 people showed back up in my life, flight attendants who I had known for years, for decades and decades, and called me and got in touch with me, and said, "Hi, you were on my heart. I was thinking of you. How are you doing?" And each one of them said, "And let's talk about what happened to us like 10, 15 years ago so that we can move forward now in our friendship. Let's clear." One said, "Let's clear the air." The other one said, "I just want to tell you what it was that upset me, and so that you'll know the reason we haven't been in touch with one another." So once again, just what you said. It was it was such awe. And I was just praying this prayer of forgiveness, much like you, to clear myself of forgiveness so that peace could prevail within me. And that, as we know, as peace prevails within in each and every one of us, it gets an opportunity to prevail on the planet. Yeah. So another example of it working. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I love this because it's, for me, you're opening up possibilities again for really just throwing myself into the arena of prayer, just getting excited about praying,
Mhm.
spiritual mind treatment, and knowing how it can really change things for our lives.
Mhm.
Even not, maybe not the thing that we're exactly asking for, but did you see prayer as the way you're explaining it and what's coming through for me is like this, it's like throwing a heart open, like
Mhm.
that saying that we all hear, my heart's cracked wide open. Prayer can do that,
Mhm.
to crack our hearts open, to allow for the healings to happen and the revealings, so that
Mhm.
then our lives change in the ways we might not have thought they were going to change. Things happen
Mhm.
in these mysterious ways because we're opening up to love.
Mhm. 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 Absolutely, and I'm so happy you said that because for me, one of the prayers that I've been praying in the last, I don't know, 12 months, maybe 14 months, and that's not distinct, but one of the prayers that has showed up for me for cracking my heart wide open is the prayer of forgiveness, but also for me, the prayer of surrendering and releasing whatever residual hmm, pain or suffering I may feel I'm a part of as a result of racism and racism around the globe. And what that has shown up as for me is the love that I am. It's more effusive and it's more infinite and it's more limitless within, through, and as me, with all sorts of people with whom I interact, and even the sort of peoples I interact with who I may have previously thought were racist. Okay. And
Okay.
so it's really, really, really opened up my heart in a loving way that I also get to love myself for that which I have experienced, and to know that it all has come through me and as me and is me for my greater growth. So that I can, just what you and I were talking about earlier, so that I can, as a global citizen, immerse myself more deeply into all sorts of cultures and bring the love that I am and bring the teachings that we so love and are a part of into the hearts of all, because we are all one heart interconnected. Yeah,
Yes.
so
Yes.
and it
And
seems
that's
to have softened my edges. Yeah. Mhm.
and that's courage, and that's really, because as a minister, and
Mhm.
as I'm a practitioner and you're a practitioner and you're a double minister. I was reading here you're with Emerson and Centers for Spiritual Living. You're like
Mhm.
double whammy here. You've gone for it. And that doesn't mean then that you would have it all worked out, or there isn't. It highlights things even more, gives more opportunity to come to that place of knowing that we are one, and
Mhm.
that whatever the personalities are
Mhm.
of in our humanness, that can have an opportunity to be forgiven or released or dissolved also, even though that doesn't mean it's not painful
Mhm.
to do that and to go
Mhm.
through that process,
Mhm.
to look within and to do that. There's still pain there. I have never experienced anti-Semitism. Um,
Mhm.
I've never experienced that,
Mm.
and yet I hear, my daughter had, and that really
Mhm.
angered me, and
Mhm.
so I can put myself in. I can't fully
Mhm.
put myself in the place of a person of color, because I'm not experiencing that as a lived experience. And yet I can open my heart more fully to
Mhm.
those that may have those ideas of against the understanding of what it is to be Jewish,
Mhm.
and to shower love in that
Mhm.
direction,
Mhm.
because I'm living in that idea in my mind that there is a time right now where we can all recognize who we truly are. That's why these teachings are so powerful, aren't they? Because we
Yes.
can know that from a higher place. We
Mhm.
can know it from a higher place.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
And as you and I and all of us know it from a higher place and know this truth, like embedded in us, then it can radiate out. and we can know it from a
Yes.
higher place. And the thing about the pain I want to point out too is that, it's something I love what Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith says, which is pain pushes and vision pulls. And so that, and it's pain is a blessing. And so any pain that I have experienced or am experiencing as a part of this ongoing prayer of surrender and release and opening to the greater love, it's like my jet fuel, it's filling me, it's giving me, it's energizing me and giving me an opportunity to be in it, to step in it. And also, when we're in the pain, part of staying in the pain is wonderful because of faith and trust.
Right.
Because I know that when I'm in the pain, I'm not going under in the pain. I'm not going to be spiraling down into the pain and not come back. I trust and know in faith, because also I'm praying through the pain, that the pain is there to serve me. And that, so I get to give thanks for the pain. I get to do like Greg Braden teaches us, which is the 3 steps of prayer, which is bless. I get to bless the feeling of suffering or the feeling of pain. I get to bless those that have inflicted it, the feeling of suffering or pain. And I get to bless my witnessing of it. And then I also get to accept and understand the beauty of it all. So, in the midst of the pain, all of these possibilities show up in prayer. Yeah, so it's there for us all the time, and in so many differing and varying ways, and it all works.
Yes. And it works because I can say it works because I've experienced the demonstrations of it. So we all have our own way of, or our own opportunity to discover how it works, because we, we can know it, and yet when we experience the demonstrations, it's like, oh my word!
Yes.
Why didn't they tell me this when I was 2?
Oh yes, exactly, Laura. Oh, every time I experience a demonstration, I'm in awe, and often think, well, why are you in awe? This is the way it works. This is what desires for you. However, I'm just like, oh my goodness. Yeah. And even just saying that, oh my goodness, is like, oh my goodness, oh my godness. Yeah, it's there. It's there for us. Yeah. And the demonstrations show up in minuscule ways. And the demonstrations also show up in really humongous ways.
Yes.
The demonstrations show up. Yes. And the thing that I have come to know and embrace, I'm embracing every minute, is that the demonstrations show up in time and on time, which is on spirit's time, maybe not on my human time. Yeah. So that the demonstrations absolutely positively show up. However, they may not show up at the time that I have an expectation that they show up. Yeah.
Yes, and we may not want the demonstration at the time that it shows up, and yet we ask for it. I ask for it.
Yes, here it is. You asked for it. Here it is on your silver platter. Yeah. Yeah. And I just what you're doing, I get to laugh and giggle about it. And something that you referred to at the top too is I get to stay in a place of playfulness about it. I get to remember that it's not all about seriousness. In the life that I'm living, sometimes in the past, I have been pretty stodgy in my enlightenment journey. Like, okay, I'm taking my classes, I'm doing my growth work, I'm praying my prayers, I'm doing my visioning, I'm doing my meditation, I'm doing all of my spiritual practices, and I'm gonna get this. And okay, and I'm serious about it. And yes, just like you're giggling, then I get to realize, oh yeah, and it's about fun. It's about playfulness. It's about joy. It's about giddiness. It's about enthusiasm, It's about all those things that we get to remember. Oh yeah, we're here to have a great time. I have a dear friend, she used to always say when we would go to service on Sunday or when we would go to class, she would say, okay, and we are going to have a funky good time. And it was so wonderful because it was a great reminder that, yes, in all the midst of all the God qualities that we are, play and joy and glee and gladness is mixed up in there with everything else. So that for me too, when I get a demonstration, like you said, maybe at a time when I think I don't want it, I get to giggle and laugh and say, okay, spirit has quite a sense of humor, and here it is. And I accept. Yeah. It's important. Yes.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much for sharing. Reverend Verona, you are here shining your light and teaching us all, teaching me and all of us that are listening here. We have Janice is still here. I think she just sent a message in, and Wayne is here. Of course, reach for the stars. That's what we're doing in every moment. And I think is probably still here. If you are, this is an incredible cosmic prayer. I'm so excited to be here with Reverend Verona to learn more about her idea of prayer and what it is that inspires her to pray. And we're learning that. And I'm going to ask you right now, I'm just being nudged here, Spirit's nudging me in my heart to ask you about your life as a global well, flying through the air, basically, using the praying through the airwaves internationally, and how that, did you discover Science of Mind while you were an air flight attendant? Is that the
Yes.
point? So you were using the principles as you were doing? Yes.
So I, as I referred to before, or alluded to before, I was a flight attendant for 43 years. And of those 43 years, 33 of those years, I was international flight attendant. So I flew long hauls, what we call long hauls. And I came to know during that time, and I've come to know now in retrospect, that all that time I was ministering, and I just didn't use that word for it. And so as I was flying, I got opportunity to meet so many different people. And one of the different people I met was a dear friend of mine, and he knew about Science of Mind. And we were having a conversation about religiosity. That's what we were talking about. And I was saying, well, I just don't know if it works for me anymore, or I'm not quite clear. And so he said, well, I know of this faith philosophy. It's called Science of Mind. Maybe you want to go there and check it out. And so I did go. And when I got there, of course, I found myself to be at home. However, I also found that I was already within me sharing Science of Mind principles and practices on board the airplane. I just didn't know how, I didn't language them in that same way.
Right.
Okay, and I'm going to give an example. On the airplane, I flew what was called the purser position, which is the person who coordinates the crew, liaison between the cockpit and the crew, a lot of other things. And so also what the purser does is when there's a challenge with a passenger, who do they call but the purser? Okay. And so I was known amongst all of my flying colleagues, and even my supervisor used to call me this, the damage control queen, because when there was something happening with a passenger on board the airplane, they would come get me. And I really wasn't aware until after the fact that when I would walk up to the passenger, I would stop and hold, you know how we say, I'm sitting vigil and holding the consciousness
high
as a
watch.
practitioner. Yes, I'm holding the high watch. I would initially hold the high watch before I'd even have a conversation with them. And then I would go into the conversation with them.
Okay.
And of course, in the conversation with them, not of course, but in the conversation with them, the other thing that showed up for me was the love available, that each one of us wants to be seen. We want to be loved. We want to be heard. And so I also realize now that I was all those years on the plane, I was doing the Buddhist thing, kind of, the metta practice, which is I am safe, I am loved, I am happy, and I am at peace. And I would hold that for our passengers too. And I really, 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 and on all honesty and transparency, letting you know, Laura, that I really, as I said, didn't have a language for it initially. And then when I came to Science of Mind, I started realizing, oh, this is what you've been doing all around the globe, all these years, all these flights, all these moments in the air. And that then after I immersed myself in Science of Mind, then it was my thrill and my joy to, like, on every takeoff, speaking of affirmations, on every takeoff, I would say in my head, or sometimes out loud if there was no one sitting with me, I give thanks for a safe takeoff.
Right.
Or on every landing, I give thanks for a safe landing. Because when it comes to flying, the takeoff and the landing are the two parts that something could possibly happen.
Yes.
Most likely, if it's going to happen. Other things can happen, but most likely. And then also I found it to be my joy to just playfully on board the airplane and almost skip down the aisle and just hold the high watch for everyone. And hold everyone in the depth of consciousness and to do affirmations and to just be in a place of the knowingness that we are all a community of love there together who happen to be on this vehicle called an airplane. 350 of
Right.
us, 150 of us, whatever size the airplane. So yes, I really, really, really am so grateful that I got to use all my science and my learning and practice on the airplane all the time. And before I came to Science of Mind, it was already embedded in me. As I said, I just didn't have the languaging, or shall we say, I had not honed the skills in a way that I could quantify them. But
Right.
after I came to Science of Mind, I most definitely could, as well as I got to immerse myself in every culture I arrived at too. When we had
Yes.
layovers, we didn't have short layovers. We had 2, 3, 4, 5-day layovers. I was immersed in every place I went, and I got to bring that also, and got to share that, and also got to recognize that when it showed up in other ways in other places. Like I flew the Pacific for about 10 years. And it showed up, the Science of Mind practices, principles showed up every time I went to a temple in Japan, or I went to a temple in Taiwan, or I went to the Great Wall in China. I could feel the presence of those things that we already know exists, and that we have them as our Science of Mind practices, principles, and our ways of being. Yeah.
Oh, Reverend Verona, I'm breathing this in, and I'm taking in the magnitude of what you were doing, and that you actually experienced firsthand being in those cultures, in those countries, meeting the people, understanding how people's customs and
Mhm.
the religiosity, and how that expresses itself through the different
Mhm.
ways that people have their rituals. And what a gift, what a blessing for you, and what a blessing that you are sharing this now in your community.
Mhm, mhm.
What a blessing you are.
Excuse me. Absolutely. Such a blessing for me too. And I just want to add here, it's like the most grandiose of blessings, because I am from a small town in the middle of the United States. I'm from a place
Right.
called Des Moines, Iowa, which is right plunked down in the center of the United States, which is known for pigs and corn. My grandparents had a farm. I mean, I am from this little, small, at the time, a tiny little place, and that I got to bring that which incarnated with me already, that I got to bring it to the world, that I got to have a customized place for me to be that was called my job, but a customized place of living on purpose, so that I could bring all this to the world. And just like you said, and now I get to bring it to the world I'm in now. Now I get to bring it to the global world that I'm a part of now. And you and I both know that's what we are now, a global
Yes.
world. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just such a thrill and a treat that you and I are here together. That you are in the south of England, and I'm in the north of the state of California, in the United States, and because it's all global now. And so, yes, it's so wonderful that I get to prayerfully bring it all, and it just flows through me. It's like the inflow and the outflow of our breath. It flowed into me, and now I get to flow it out onto the planet.
Oh, it
Yeah.
flew and it flows. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it so much. It's giving inspiration for me and for those that are watching right now. We're with Reverend Verona Garland, who is the assistant minister at Agape Bay Area, and so you would have been trained by Dr. Michael Beckwith.
I
Uh,
did not train with Dr. Beckwith. I trained at Emerson Theological, and
you
then
trained.
who I've gotten a lot of training and mentoring from is Reverend Dr. Joan Stedman. Yeah,
Ah,
and because
Reverend Dr.
Reverend
Joan Stedman.
Joan began at Agape, and then she switched over to CSL, and then now we're back at
Right.
Agape. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and also I have had some training with Dr. Beckwith in workshops and things like that. Yeah, here and there,
Yes.
kind of
Yes.
spotty things. However, my Emerson theological training I really love and loved, because it took me out of the box. It
Yes.
it was online, and so I got to take my studies with me all over the world. And so I got to reflect upon my studies as I was in other places in the world. Like I used to in South Korea, there's this wonderful mountain called um, Araksan, and I used to take my studies. It's a place you go hiking, and I would go there and hike up a little bit on Araksan, and then do my studies there, so that my ministerial studies were global, and also I could feel the spiritual influx of that mountain that's held in high regard. In South Korea, most everyone climbs that mountain, and it's a spiritual journey, not a spiritual pilgrimage, but just a journey for everyone. Just knowing that spirit is present everywhere. And in South Korea, I so admire them because that's what they know. Spirit is present everywhere, everywhere. So
Yes.
that things like that, I was given the opportunity and the blessing to learn in that way. Yeah. So in a way that I wouldn't, I mean, there's no way that I could have imagined it happening. However, just what we're talking about here. And it was an answer to a prayer. When it came time, when I heard the calling to be a minister, to follow that, I spoke with my mother and my family, and they all said, well, yeah, we knew it all the time. We were just waiting to see when you knew it. And when that call came, I also, in the call, was what showed up was, and there's a way to do it in a playful, expansive way that maybe you didn't think of before. And then Emerson Theological showed up, where I then am dragging all of my books around the planet to learn all of my ministry.
Wow.
Then it flowed into the next part of the path, which is Agape Bay Area. Yeah. So for me, it's been the answer to the prayer of, in what way, Spirit, can I serve? And in what way can it be joyful, adventurous, discovering, and maybe even pioneering? Yeah. And
Yes.
that answer to the prayer has shown up in my life. Yeah.
So for you, do you feel the power of not placing so much form around the purpose? So for example, I mean, you've just, those words that you're using, playful and light and adventurous and joy-filled, and allowing the demonstration to be whatever the highest of that can be for your life, rather than it has to be this and it has to be that. It has to show up in form like this or like that. It's much more freeing when we're setting that intention in the values that we want to live, rather than how we think it should show up.
And thank you, Laura, for saying that, because have you ever noticed sometimes I say to myself, whew, I'm glad that prayer didn't get answered the way I thought it was supposed to get answered.
Right.
I mean, because I'm not going to say that sometimes I don't want to pray the prayer of, okay, Spirit, I open to accept the most perfect automobile that I want. I open to accept like my own Rolls Royce Silver Shadow. Okay. Instead of, the prayer is, okay, I accept and realize and affirm divine right and perfect transportation for me of comfort, of luxury, of joyfulness, of things like that. So opening it up like that in the realization phase makes the difference of then being open to accept that is more than I can imagine.
Right.
Yeah. And kind of letting it be what I often say, loosey goosey and higgly piggly, inside of me, to know that, okay, I pray the prayer, and we know that our spiritual mind treatment steps, if we follow them, it works. And I also open myself to that, and it's something that in our prayers we get to say this and the more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so would you say that's the joyful piece that that's how the joy shows up for you, with opening up to this way of saying, yeah, and this and more? And how has that joy showed up? Would you share a demonstration of how that is showing up for you right now?
Oh, yes.
Or how it has, yes.
This and the more. I, of course, love to travel. Okay. And I've loved to travel since I'm a girl. When I first got my job as a flight attendant, it was my uncle who led me into it. And he said, so what are you good at, kid? What do you like to do? And I said, I love people and I love to travel. And he said, okay, you're going to be a stewardess. All right. Which was what it was called back then. Okay. And so that traveling part of me has always been in me. And part of that, I think, was put in me because I had a dad who loved to travel. My dad was in World War II.
Okay.
And my dad was in World War II in France. And when he came back home, I don't know if it was already in him, but when he came back home, his thing was, okay, now we're on the road. We're going to travel. Okay. And so I had the blessing of traveling with my parents all over the United States as a child. Okay, so the traveling, though, as we know, when we were in the pandemic, a lot of us, we didn't get to travel. Most of us didn't get to go any place, you know. So I've been just holding it in my heart that the traveling part of me, my traveling desire shows up, that it just shows up in all sorts of ways. And so one of the ways that it has shown up is one of my dear friends who I flew with the entire 43 years. She lives in Portland, Oregon. And we were in touch with each other during the pandemic a lot, all the time. And then one day we were texting and emailing. And one day she called me and she said, when this is all over, would you come visit? And I said, of course. I mean, what's an airplane ride to us? Well, as it turns out, she is having a special occasion at the end of April. She's having a special party at her home for a bunch of friends and things like that. And she called me and said, well, I know you're going to be here, aren't you? I had a dream and I saw that you're here at the party. I know you're going to be here. Well, and I said, of course, I can come to the party. And so now at the end of April, I'm going to hop on the jet and go to the party. So that's a kind of a small demonstration of that prayer of mine. However, one of the bigger demonstrations is, I think I mentioned before, my daughter went to college at American University of Paris. And so she has friends from around the world, much like I do. And one of her friends is getting married in Cairo in the fall. And my daughter's been invited to the wedding. And she phoned me about 2 weeks ago and said, Mom, I've been invited to the wedding and I've been invited to take a +1. And I could take my significant other with me, but Mom, could you go with me instead? Mom, could you go to the wedding in Cairo with me? Because you've already been there. And she said, but it just showed up for me in my meditation that you're the one I want to bring to the wedding with me. So that to me is like a huge demonstration of prayer. My prayer of opening to my desire for travel and opening to, and I've been just praying, I accept and affirm and declare that traveling is the truth of who and what I am, and that it shows up in myriad and multitudinous ways. Yeah. And so that, of course, as you can tell from looking at me, it brings me joy. I get to go back to Cairo. Yeah.
You're beaming through the screen here. It's amazing.
Well, those are two of the ways that, it's shown up, where I put the joy into the prayer and the playfulness into the prayer and go through all the steps of spiritual mind treatment, of course, and allow it to show up in its own way. And I might add that part of the joy too is it's built into me. It came with me. Yeah. And I know
absolutely
to share. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, Reverend Verona, I could hang out here for about another 2 hours with you.
That's great.
And so you will come back, I know, onto the cosmic prayer, because in a few minutes we're going to kind of allow the next program to come on, which is a practical prayer. We're still staying with prayer, so it's a good affirmation that we've set here on a Monday for prayer to be discussed and talked about and allowed for people to catch that in their heart of how powerful it is. And I'm just so grateful that you said yes to being here on the cosmic prayer. That's a prayer answered for me. And that all these beautiful people that are watching and have been commenting, Bonnie's saying, I'm with you. Yes, you are Bonnie, flying with Rev Verona right now. So I can say from that it's the affirmations that are those golden threads in between when we say our prayers, getting used to saying affirmations and praying more than once a day, and knowing our values for those prayers, knowing what it is that we want our life, what we want it to feel like. For Reverend Verona, who's demonstrating that so powerfully, and thank you for being here and sharing that with us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. And you said it. It's about the feeling tone. I was sharing with I called you Reverend Laura already. I was sharing with Reverend Laura, practitioner Laura, that the cup I chose for my morning tea is prayer changes everything. And I didn't. Yes. I mean, Spirit. I just reached up and grabbed it. However, that we get to know that if we allow ourselves to be in the feeling tone of that which we desire, then prayer can change everything.
Yeah. Yes. So would you like to share a prayer with me for a few minutes just before we close the show? I can
Absolutely.
begin, and then would you kind of, yes?
Yes.
Why don't we
Fun.
pray for the knowing of?
Hmm.
What's on your heart, in your mind?
Love, 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 love. Mhm.
Love. Perfect. And I'd like to add in there joy.
Okay.
Joy. Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. So let's do
Yes.
this for preaching right now. I hope that you can hear me properly because I had a headphone thing, but it's all okay. Technology is working perfectly. As we settle
Mhm.
in, and if you want to join us here and close your eyes, if you can, if it's safe for you to do so, please do for a few moments. As I know that this prayer for love and for joy is one that is done and demonstrated, because I know that there's one thing that's happening right now, the power and the presence that is the love, that is the joy, that is infusing itself through the law as everything. It is omnipresent, omniscient, omnipotent. It's everywhere, and it always has been. And as I allow myself to open up to that, I know that I am one as this, with this, that this thing itself moves and lives and has its being through me. And of course, as I know it through me, I know it for Rev Verona as well, that we are one. For everybody listening here right now, that this one is experiencing itself, to know itself as this love and this joy. And with this knowing, I lovingly hand this over now to Reverend Verona.
Word accepted in love, in joy, in absolute gleefulness, knowing that it is the word of spirit speaking itself through Laura, speaking itself through me, Reverend Verona, speaking itself right here and right now out into the planet, the cosmos, the galaxies, and so much more. So I affirm and accept that joy and love are having a tango in spirit together. Joy and love are dancing and skipping and cartwheeling and playing together in, through, and as Laura, in, through, and as myself, in, through, and as every part of the galaxies, in, through, and as every part of our planet. That joy and love absolutely uplift us, indwell us, fuel us, satiate us, satisfy us, fulfill us, and so much more, because I know that joy and love absolutely are the qualities of spirit that are innate to and as and through each one of us, to and as and through each person on this call, in this show, in this network, knowing that joy and love prevails. Joy and love makes all the crooked places straight. Joy and love absolutely positively radiates and illuminates itself into every crevice, every nook, every cranny, every for the absolute peace-filled unfoldment of spirit in, through, and as each one of us here, in, through, and as each one of us on the planet, in, through, and as all, knowing that the spirit of the living God prevails in, through, and as us, and that it makes itself known in joyous ways and loving ways and so much more. And so I give thanks. I give thanks for the word spoken here. I give thanks for the word unspoken. I give thanks for this blessed time together, knowing that it has absolutely been a rendezvous of love and joy and harmony and peace and so much more. Knowing that what comes from this time together is filled to overflowing with the limitless givingness, self-givingness of spirit itself. I give thanks for all of this. I surrender. I take my human hands off. I step aside.
Mhm.
I let spirit work. And so it is. Amen. Ashe.
And so it is.
And so it is.
Yes. And so it is. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Rona, and to everybody watching here on the Cosmic Prayer. It's been a great hour, and we're about to go now, and we'll see you next time. And of course, New Thought Media Network is an incredible global focus ministry doing wonderful things every single day of the year. Yes, there are programs like this, broadcasts, teachings, entertainment, education, all sorts of amazing things. And so I know that if you and as you feel more and more connected with this network, then do show yourself, prove to yourself that the Lord, there is a donate link on the network website that you can go to and offer your love offering, your conscious give, money, financial donation to this network, which is doing incredible things to fulfill its ever expanding vision here on planet Earth. Thank you again, Reverend Verona. Until next time.
Thank you.